Hey, this is Mr. V with part 2 of the video on solving percent problems. In the first part, I introduced the percent equation, which looks like this. Percent of some total equals some number, n. And we talked about the 3 different types of percent problems, where you're either missing the percentage, missing the total, or missing the number. In the first video, we covered the sort of more classic situation where you're given a percentage and a total amount, and you have to find the number. In this video, I'm going to talk about the other 2 situations where you're either looking for the percentage or looking for the total. In either case, there's something that's very important you be able to do, and that is to translate these problems into a simple math equation. Here's what I mean. I'm going to put down a few equations, a few problems, and we're going to translate them. So let me see. First of all, there. So we have 3 different problems. What is 25% of 40? This is actually the first type we did in the previous video. 18 is 30% of what number? And what percent of 90 is 36? So these represent all 3 different types of problem. And in every case, you don't actually need to spend any time trying to figure out which one are you doing. If you are able to do some basic translation, you'll find these problems a lot easier. The thing to keep in mind is that the word what, anything that says what, well, that's the thing you're looking for. That's the unknown. That is the, in algebra, we would use a variable for this. If you're not comfortable with algebra, you're not comfortable with using letters in your math equations, fine. Just make a big empty box there. That's the thing we're looking for. What is always an equal sign. 25%, we're going to write that as 25%. Or if you're more comfortable with decimals, you could write that as 0.25. It'll come out to the same thing, of 40. And that's it. That's how you translate this problem. We're really just doing 25% of 40, and that'll give us our answer. This one here, 18 is 30% of what number? Well, that's the thing we're looking for. There goes your box, right? Or your variable. And last but not least here, what percent? Well, that's the thing we're looking for. We're looking for the percentage in this case. What percent of is always multiplication. 90 is 36. If you're able to do that, you're already on your way. So let me give you a few for you to translate. And I'll put these over here on the side. Let's see. There we go. Bunch of examples. Now, please don't try to solve these. I just made up a bunch of numbers. They won't work out nicely. It could take you a long time to do. And that is not the point of this exercise. All you're doing right now is translating these problems, these English sentences, into a math equation. Give this a shot. Pause the video. Try to translate all these. Again, don't calculate them. All you're doing is what I did over here on this side. Translate them to math equations. Come back when you're done. All right. Well, it looks like this. Every time you see the word what, that's the unknown. That's your variable or your box. So what is 34%, or I could have written 0.34, of 56. That's it. That's all you have to do here. Next, 78 is what percent? That's my box. When I see the word what, that's the thing I'm looking for. Of 230. 17% of what number is 30? I'm going to write this one as a decimal. 17% is the same as 0.17, 1700. 7.17 of what number? That's my unknown. That's the thing I'm looking for, is 30. 56 is 45% of what number? And last here, what percent? So the what. Every time you see what, that's what I'm looking for. What of this number, 4,567, is 234. You need to be able to set up your problems like this. It's important. Once you can do that, now you're ready to move on to the next step. All right, here we go. For example, if I ask you to solve what is, or rather, 24 is what percent of 60? First thing to do is translate this problem. 24 is what percent? That's what I'm looking for. Of 60. Now, this is the part where some people get stuck. They don't know what to do because you say, what times 60 makes 24? Well, nothing we can think of because it's not a whole number. It's a decimal, and you can't just come up with it like that. So you've got to use either you know what to do here. If you have some algebraic foundation, you know that the opposite of multiplying by 60 is dividing by 60, so you do it on both sides. If that sounds like gibberish to you, think about it this way. Make a simpler problem for yourself. For example, if this was 10 equals something times 2, you know what that is. You know it's a 5. Now, how would you get the 5? What would you do with the 10 and the 2 to make a 5? How do these two numbers lead you to understand that there's a 5 here? Well, you say, obviously you can say 2 times what makes 10, it's 5. But when you can't, for example, 60 times what makes 24, I don't know. You have to use something else. What would you do with the 10 and the 2? You would divide them. 10 divided by 2 is 5. Well, what you do with a simple problem, you can do with a more complex problem. What do I do in that case? I need to do 24 divided by 60 to find my unknown. So let me get rid of this here. This was just a little aside to help you understand why we do what I'm about to do, which is to say that my unknown must be 24 divided by 60. That's going to give me my answer, my percentage. 24 divided by 60, set it up. I know that 60 will not go into 24. It goes 0 times. I know I'm going into decimals. Place your decimal in the dividend and in the quotient. Add a 0 here. 24 is the same as 24.0. And 60 goes into 240 4 times. My answer is 4/10. I need to write that as a percentage. 4/10, 0.4, is the same as 0.40, which is the same as 40 hundredths, which is 40%. So 24 is what percent of 60? 40%. Okay, I'd like you to try a problem at this time. Please go ahead and tell me what percent of 90 is 36. Here we go. What percent of 90 is 36? First thing you do is you translate this sentence, and then you go ahead and solve the equation. If you need a little extra assistance, keep watching. Don't pause just yet. I'll help you set it up, and then you can try it on your own. Okay, so in case you're here for assistance, here's what you do. What percent? What percent? That's the unknown. Of is always multiplication. 90 equals, that's a is, 36. I need to divide, just like the example I gave before. If I had something times 5 equals 10, how would I find the 2? I would divide 10 by 5. Well, I do the same thing here. If something times 90 equals 36, then that thing equals 36 divided by 90. What is 36 divided by 90? Set that up, long division problem. 90 does not go into 36, it goes 0 times. Add a decimal here and here. I can add a 0 now. 90 goes into 360 4 times. 4 times 9 is 36. 4 times 90 is 360. I get the same kind of answer I had over there, 0.4, which is the same as 0.40, which is 40%. So what percent of 90 is 36? The answer here, again, is, I'll write it up here, 40%. Right, we're going to do one more problem. Here we go. So in this next example, we are given a percentage. We are given the number, but we are not given the total. We need to find the total. So an example of this is 42 is 28% of what number? We translate that. 42 is 28%, or I could have written 0.28 of something. Again, here, you can solve a simpler problem if you're not sure what to do with this. The idea is that if something times 28 hundredths equals 42, well, then that thing must be 42 divided by 28 hundredths. (42 divided by 28 hundredths). There are a couple ways to go about it. I can use the fact that dividing by a fraction is the same as multiplying by the reciprocal, or I could go ahead and do decimal division, do 42 divided by 0.28. I'll just go ahead and use the multiply by the reciprocal approach, and that gives me 42 times 100 over 28. I'm going to do this here first, 42 divided by 28, and then multiply by 100. 42 divided by 28 looks like this. And I know I'm going to go into decimals here, so I'll place that in there right away. 28 goes into 4. No, it does not. Goes into 42 once. 1 times 28 is 28. 42 minus 28 is 14. I can add a 0, drop it down, and 28 goes into 140 5 times. 5 times 20 is 100. 5 times 8 is 40. I get 1.5. So what does that give me? I'm over here now. I'm left with 1.5 times 100. Right? All I did was 42 divided by 28, which is 1.5. 1.5 times 100, multiplying by 100 moves the decimal to the right twice. I get 150. So 42 is 28% of what number? It's 28% of 150. Okay, I'll give you an example to try. You go ahead and tell me 18 is 30% of what number? Give this a shot. When you're ready, come on back. We'll work through it. Okay, here we go. 18 is 30% of what number? First job is translate. 18 is 30% of what number? Well, the what is the unknown. That's what I'm looking for. How do I do this? Again, I won't go through the same process or explaining the thinking behind it, but if something times 30 hundredths equals 18, then 18 divided by 30 hundredths must equal this number that we're looking for. 18 divided by 30 hundredths, that's the same as 18 times 100 over 30. I can simplify this. 100 and 30 have a 10 in common, so I can take the 10 out. In other words, I'm doing this. 100 is 10 times 10, and 30 is 3 times 10. 10 and 10 make 1. That's gone. And I'm left with 18 divided by 3 times 10. 18 divided by 3 is 6, and 6 times 10 is 60. So 18 is 30% of what number? It's 30% of 60. And voila. That's how you do it.